So good morning, everybody. Big warm welcome to all of you on what is here quite a dull and grey Monday morning. We're in a post Jubilee weekend mood. I hope you all had a nice weekend, had a nice break, and perhaps participated in some events yourself. I went to a street party yesterday afternoon, which took a while to get going, but then did get going very thoroughly and was in fact incredibly good fun. So we're here to talk today about a subject that's incredibly important to most women, and it's the menopause, and it's actually the period when we go into the perimenopause, which is that period when things start to go slightly awry. And then we move into the menopause proper, which I think is defined as you haven't had a period for up to about 12 months, so your period stopped. And then I guess quite a lot of the people on this call will consider themselves, as I very much do, to be in that post-menopausal phase. I think the subject of menopause is an interesting one because it's been taboo for a very long time. And the reason for that is because it's about women, and women's health matters are always much less interesting than the ones that affect men. And it's also been taboo because it's about periods, it's about things that we don't find particularly comfortable to talk about or haven't done in the past. And suddenly it seems to be on the agenda of a lot of people. And I've got a book which I'm actually in on page 211 talking about makeup and menopause. It's called let me put it across here. It's called Cracking the Menopause. It's by Mariella Frostrup and Alice Smelly, and who's a journalist, as is Mariella. And I think it's interesting that women like Mariella, who've always had quite a strong voice, are now coming to the menopause, and suddenly the menopause is on the agenda. So people like Davina McCall and sort of quite high-profile women are no longer prepared to keep stum about it. They are experiencing it themselves in various ways, and they want to talk about it. I think that's incredibly healthy and good, because the more that we talk about it, the less worrying and frightening it becomes. And also the more information that there is out there, the more help that we can get with whatever we might be experiencing. Now, I think the menopause is one of those subjects which has such a huge variation in it that probably the number of people on this call, there's that many different experiences of it. From almost nothing, there are women who literally don't know that they've gone through the menopause. Their periods stop, end of, they carry on with the rest of their lives, to women who are polaxed by it. And they're polaxed by it physically, mentally, emotionally, and for quite a long period of time. It affects them quite profoundly. Now, I wouldn't have started Look Fabulous Forever if it hadn't been for the fact that we go through the menopause. So I was 65 when I had the idea for Look Fabulous Forever, and I'd gone through my own menopause from the age of about the latter part of my 40s. And my menopause was triggered and was notable at the point at which I started to get extremely bad migraine. And I suffered with that all my life. And suddenly I was getting migraine, which were devastating headaches that would put me into bed for a couple of days over a weekend, where I would be sick probably about every hour or 2 hours or so. I would just continually vomit. So you can imagine the impact on my life was pretty catastrophic. I was very lucky to then be referred to and to see a specialist in headache, and a man called Professor Godson, who's Australian, and he basically sat opposite me and said, "You are the perfect candidate for HRT. You have to go on to HRT," which I did. And I stayed on HRT for about 16 or 17 years until I was in my mid to late 60s. And then I gradually weaned myself off it. And I've been absolutely fine ever since. So I sort of avoided the menopause in lots of ways by using HRT. Now, Sally had a very different experience. I'm not an advocate for HRT. I'm not sitting here saying everybody should be on HRT. I needed it and it worked for me. But I don't think everybody does need it, nor does everybody want to take it. And there are lots of contraindications for taking it for certain people. So LFF grew out of how I felt when I was 65. And I think you know the story. I've told it many, many times. But the feeling that I had was that there were two ways in which LFF grew out of being postmenopausal. One was the fact that the beauty industry doesn't like the concept or the idea of menopausal or postmenopausal women. And the reason for that, I think, is quite profound. And it's explored in this book, in fact, the sort of history of menopause. And that's that the menopause signals a decline in fertility. So you are therefore less attractive, and I'm going to put that in quotes, than you were before, because you no longer can have babies. We all know that men can stay fertile well into their 80s, so therefore they don't lose their sexual attractiveness because they can still reproduce, but we can't. And that the whole concept of the beauty industry is predicated on the notion that you're engaged in the world of beauty, and therefore you want to look attractive, and that attractiveness is partly to do with maybe even attracting a mate. So therefore we are locked out of that conversation, and the beauty industry has locked us out very thoroughly. It starts to sell us anti-aging products, and that's the only thing we're allowed to have, apparently, because we're no longer engaged in this world of making ourselves look beautiful. Now, that was one thing that made me want to start Look Fabulous Forever. And the second thing was the fact that my own experience of wanting to still engage with the world of beauty, because I saw no reason not to. I love makeup. I've always loved makeup. I like making the best of myself, and I see that makeup as being part of that. I couldn't find the products. And it was like I kept thinking, why aren't these products working for me? Why aren't these products working on the skin that I now have in this most postmenopausal phase? And it was from that frustration that the idea of producing a range of makeup which would really look good on older skin, which had gone through the menopause, came to me. And as you know, the rest is history, and I'm not going to go into that, but it's partly what Sally wants to talk to you about this morning. So that's my experience of menopause. I sort of avoided it in lots of ways, although of course I didn't avoid it because my body did go through the menopause. And as I said, now I'm not on HRT, and I'm very definitely postmenopausal, but I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy to be postmenopausal. I celebrate the fact of no more periods, and the fact that I don't have those mood swings and things that I used to have before. So what I'd like to do now is, by the way, let me just say, any experiences that you have, any questions that you have, and any ways that you want to contribute this morning, we would very much like to hear from you, because we see this as a conversation, really, given that it's an important thing to talk about, and we're now talking about it much more comfortably. So do put those things into the chat function. Emily will be able to pick those up, and we'll then be able to ask us or even tell us what your comments are. So really encourage you to participate in this, and let's make it as interactive as you want it to be. And I'm going to now pass over to Sally, who's going to look at the menopause and tell us why and how we need better and different skincare and makeup. So Sally, over to you.
Thank you, Tricia. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say that was brilliant. I agree with absolutely everything Tricia said. And that for me was one of the reasons that I actually found Look Fabulous Forever and started to use it myself. My experience was a little bit different. My mum was one of these very lucky ladies who actually just sailed through the menopause with no symptoms at all. She never had a hot flush. She just sort of, her periods just stopped. And I just assumed that I was going to be as lucky as being her daughter, that I would genetically do the same. Didn't happen for me. I sort of started the perimenopause, started to get quite panicky, actually. I felt very panicky, very tired. My periods obviously were irregular. I got hot flushes. It was that insomnia for me was a massive part of my sort of perimenopause and my menopausal symptoms. But because there was heart disease in the family, I was not advised to use HRT. So I went down a slightly different route, which I'll just tell you about, as well as talking about skincare and makeup. So I found that I just went to get a little bit of help on the natural front and used certain things like flaxseed, turmeric, St. John's wort, I used evening primrose oil, and then somebody told me about a natural, it was a cream, a natural progesterone cream that you could rub in from a company called Wellsprings, and I used that. Now, whether it was the placebo effect or not, I don't know. I'll never know for sure, but my symptoms definitely lessened. So I try to avoid spicy food and caffeine. I don't smoke anyway. I sort of lessen my alcohol. And the other thing that really helped me was somebody said, try and get into something like yoga or meditation, Sally, to help with these panic attacks. So I actually went on a little sort of meditation course, and I'm still to this day meditating once or twice a day, just for 20 minutes. That has made a massive difference in my life, and yoga as well, which I do, just online free yoga classes. My diet, I tried to get diet that was rich in phytoestrogens, so things like chickpeas, whole grain cereals, legumes, calcium rich food, more fruit and vegetables, soybeans, which some people can take, some people can't, and again flaxseed, and that again helped. But when you start going through, I don't know how many of you have had the hot flushes and the bright redness that sort of comes up your body. I remember literally it sort of coming up, and I would suddenly go bright red and just really, really sweaty and just awful. And for me, keeping makeup on then was a real problem. So until I discovered it looked fabulous, obviously. So let's just talk about, first of all, let's talk about skin and what happens to your skin. So I would say there's often an increased sensitivity in skin. You get thinner skin, dryness of skin, dullness of skin when you're going through the menopause, due to that reduction of collagen that happens to all of us. You can actually lose up to 30% of your collagen in 5 years. Pigmentation, I think when I was going through the menopause, suddenly I would get the sunspots, age spots from all the sunbathing I had done stupidly when I was younger, suddenly seemed to all just come out in one go in one area. So there was sort of pigmentation patches that I needed to deal with. And also you lose melanin. So your whole sort of complexion becomes lighter often. And you get hair loss in your brows and sprouting on your chin as well. So skincare, really, really important. And Look Fabulous Forever have really addressed that issue well, particularly with the serum. I don't know how many of you have already started using or might be using the Hydration Hold Serum. This is fantastic because it has hyaluronic acid, and that's a really good product to get onto your skin every day. Because it will actually, it's a bit like a moisture magnet, and it means that your skin will be much more hydrated when you put your moisturizer over the top of it. It's light but effective, and I always use that in the morning. I use it at night as well, and then I put my day moisturizer on in the morning, which again is lovely and light. When if you're having hot flushes, you don't want to feel that your skin is heavy, thick cream, sticky, and that's where Look Fabulous Forever's range of skincare is fantastic, because it knows what our skin needs. Vitamins A, C, E, F, they're all things that we need. And in the evening, again, I love to use the night cream, which has got all the ingredients that we need without feeling heavy and sticky. So skincare, really important. And you might think that actually you can't put oil on your skin if you're having hot flushes. And I think it depends. As Tricia said, it's a very individual thing what happens to your skin during menopause. I would say more women get more dryness. So I would think just generally gentle exfoliation, using the clay mask regularly if you're finding it is a little bit oily and sort of through perspiration on the skin. But don't forget the hydration. That's so important. So in terms of makeup, when you're going through the menopause, for me, as I said, my makeup would slide off because of the hot flushes. So I found, and I still find, I really, really love using primer. Primer for me is essential. The Smooth Like Silk Face Prime would be it's one of my top products, and that's what got me using Look Fabulous Forever to start with. So the primer will keep your makeup in place, even if you have a hot flush throughout the day. The eye prime is brilliant as well, because it will keep your eyeshadow in place. And I used to find that eyeshadow would crease on my eyes until I found this product, and it is amazing. My earrings just dropped out, which is clever. Let's take the other one off. So if you get the redness, or if you used to get the redness, or you know anyone that's going through that, again, two things: the primer, after the primer, Color Balance Neutralizer, which is our wonderful, it's green, and people go, I can't put green on my face, but it's actually fantastic because you tend to know roughly where you flush. So just putting a little bit of the green on the areas that you might flush on can make a massive difference. You do have to use a concealer or a foundation after using this product. You can't just wear the green because it is very slightly green. But the secret to it is to put it on after your primer, before your foundation concealer. Eyes can be more sensitive when you're going through the menopause, perimenopause. You might find that they run a little bit, and that's also a fantastic reason for using the eye cream. For me, the lack of sleep meant that I would wake up in the morning with really dark circles. And there are some days when I'd had virtually no sleep. I was having panic attacks. I was just hot. I was tossing and turning. And for that, I would thoroughly recommend in the morning actually using not only the green, but the Color Balance Neutralizer in peach in the darkest areas under the eyes. So a tiny bit of that where it's really dark. Then I would put my foundation on. Then I would put my cover to cover concealer on. Foundation. If you're going through hot flushes, foundation is essential. I would not recommend using a powder-based foundation because powder and water don't really mix very well. A powder to use over the foundation needs to be incredibly fine, and that's where ours is fantastic. But as for a foundation itself, menopausal skin, I think, needs a liquid foundation. So either the Light Look Beauty Balm, which is fantastic, or the Continuous Cover Foundation. They are both made, as Tricia said, they were produced for skin of this age. And if you're finding that the Continuous is a little bit too heavy at some days, you could just mix the two together or just use a Light Look Beauty Balm. Again, if you're going through the hot flushes, avoid using too much of your fingers to put your foundation on because you want to keep the skin cool. So I would thoroughly recommend there actually using a foundation brush rather than too much finger work at that stage if you're going through the hot flush stage. Avoid heavy foundation and avoid lots of layering, which can just stop the skin from breathing. But the fact that you've put a primer on means that whatever liquid foundation you do put over the top, it will stay in place. It's just fantastic. You buff it in really, really well with your foundation brush. It will look fantastic. Now, concealer. As I said, concealer can be your best friend or it can be an enemy, depending on how powdery a concealer is and how much you put on. The concealer that we've got, the Cover to Cover concealer, is fantastic for menopausal skin, perimenopausal skin, and I use it a lot I'm now definitely post-menopausal, but this is when all my age spots and my sunspots sort of came out in just, they went mad. And so for me, this product is the best thing I've come across because although it's a concealer, it's creamy. So you can actually just use it where you need extra help on top of your foundation. And I would put it, as I said, over, if my circles were really dark, I would put it over the peach color corrector. Because it's creamy, it doesn't cake, it doesn't sit in lines, and it's just fantastic for covering up any kind of age spots, sunspots, and extra pigmentation that you have. So thoroughly recommend that. Powder. some people say, oh, if you're going through hot flushes, should you put a lot of powder on? My answer to that is it depends on the powder. And as I said before, heavy cakey powders or coloured powders. A lot of ladies think, oh, I'll just use a coloured powder rather than a translucent one. But if you use a coloured one and you perspire a lot, you can actually get the pigment can collect a little bit on your skin and make the skin look a little bit sort of dirty. So you actually are better to use a very, very sheer translucent powder. So Look Fabulous Forever's powder is one of my favorite products because, again, it's really, really fine. And I would, again, just use the big powder brush and dust it over. But because it's so thin, it doesn't, if I was to have a hot flush, which, as I said, I'm well past, but if I was to have a hot flush, it wouldn't react and make my skin look so dirty, which you can do with a coloured powder. So that's a really, really good product to have. I think the other thing some ladies like to use is blotting paper. That's another thing you can use. There are various makes of blotting paper out there on the market. If you're going through that stage, something like Shadow do one. There's something called Arborian black paper that's got charcoal in, or DHC is a nice range that's got its own little blotting papers. But I find for me, it's always the powder is brilliant and it makes my makeup last all day long.
Sally, can I just interrupt there? This blotting paper, when would you use that?
If you were out, you just have it in your bag and just, if you suddenly got really hot and really sort of shiny and you say you didn't have your powder with you or you didn't have a pressed powder, you could literally take their little blotting paper and you just put them on and it just absorbs the perspiration and the oil if there's any oil there too. So they're quite handy to have in your bags for emergencies. But I find I love this because it's, I just take it out with me if I need it in the day. As I said, in terms of pigmentation, so you might get the extra pigmentation, but for me, the other thing that happened was I lost my kind of color. And that's where you've seen me go on about how I love using the blusher and how I love using the bronzer. For me, my face comes alive when I'm using the Look Fabulous products to create the color that has kind of disappeared after the menopause. I don't have the lovely rosy cheeks that I used to have unless I'm doing a lot of exercise, then they get very rosy. But so I'm very often, if I wake up in the morning and I've had a bad night's sleep, my face is just all one color. So it's not until I put on my face color, my blusher, and again the blusher is fantastic. It's cream. Better than very, very loose particles on the skin, which will just sit and emphasize the lines that you might start to get. But it doesn't sink in. Some cream blushers will sink into the skin. This one is not like that. It's got it's a cream that you can blend in, but then it does sort of still sit like a powder, but without being powdery and cakey. If you've used it, you'll know what I mean. But that for me is an essential post-menopausal product to use, as is the bronzer. I just like to use the bronzer. I use it because I'm warmer over my blusher, but also in my hairline, sometimes a little bit on my jawline to sort of create a little bit more contour, because that's the other thing that happens. You kind of lose your definition sometimes because you're losing your collagen. Everything starts to go south. And so I find that using a little bit of bronzer just lights up the face and makes you look so much better. It really does. If you're finding during the menopause that you get sensitive eyes, I would recommend using, as I said, the eye prime, just a tiny amount. I would also recommend using waterproof mascara. Today I'm actually wearing the new blue mascara, which isn't waterproof, but I love it, the navy blue, and it's not too vivid. It's if you haven't tried it, it's fantastic. But if I knew that my eyes were sensitive, sometimes I get hay fever actually, and that's another thing that came later in life for me, and my eyes sometimes water with hay fever. I would definitely recommend the waterproof mascara, which is fantastic. That's now in black and in brown. And the other thing that happens, as I said, is you lose, it's weird, you lose hair where you don't want to lose it. And then you gain hair where you really, really don't want it. So eyebrows start to fade. you start to get, you know, a bit of hair loss. And then suddenly when I was probably, so I went through, I would say the perimenopause for me started in my mid-40s. And I probably went through for about 5 years of this sort of perimenopause, then the menopause. And then I guess I was probably about 50, I think I was 53 when I sort of came out of that. But I was left with a much more dehydrated skin and a really lovely little crop of chin hair that was just very, very horrible and really didn't help my confidence at all. So I sort of lost my eyebrows and then gained a little beard instead. So for me, I actually had to go and have some electrolysis, which did help. Took a while, but it's gone now, I'm very pleased to say, as I'm through that. So, but for the eyebrows, because you might still be having the odd hot flush, the great thing about the Bring Back Brow product, which is over here somewhere, no, it's not. It's gone. I'm not in my house today because I had a Wi-Fi breakdown. Oh, there it is. Bring Back Brow. So I had to find a friend today that would let me do this. So Bring Back Brow is waterproof. Now, again, this is something that Tricia invented, and it's just such a fantastic product because it creates little fine hairs that you can then use your spoolie brush to just soften. And it's waterproof. So if you are perspiring and you're having hot flushes, it will not move. So a really clever product that's good if you're going through the perimenopause and menopause, and then definitely the postmenopausal, when I found then I started to lose the end of my eyebrows, definitely of both sides, but particularly the one that I sleep on. I'm trying to sleep on my back now, but I don't always. And that side, I've definitely lost the end of my eyebrow. So Bring Back Brow, fantastic. You also might lose, your brows start to droop a little bit more as you're losing the elasticity of the skin. So you can actually, using Bring Back Brow, slightly change the shape and make them more upward at the end rather than drooping down too much. Eyes, as well as becoming more sensitive, you start to, I found that my eyelids became much thinner, and therefore it showed the little veins on my eyes, particularly if I started to use very shiny eyeshadows. So using the primer, the eye primer, and also then using the matte shadows. So matte shadows make a massive difference to the way your makeup looks on your eyes. And that's, again, what looked fabulous. And what Tricia decided was matte shadows are fantastic for menopausal, postmenopausal eyes and skin. And it's true, it definitely looks better. You will find everything is a little bit more bumpy, and that the primer allows that, it sort of basically smooths everything over. So bumpiness on eyes means that using your traditional liquid eyeliner, pencil eyeliner, can not look as attractive. And that's where also using the eyeshadow, the matte eyeshadow, and your wedge brush number 8 to create the effect of eyeliner, but in a much more soft way, is a really fantastic product and a way of creating eyes, but without them looking harsh and bumpy and wiggly, which you do sometimes see on an older face that's still maybe using really thick liquid liner. It can work, it's totally individual, but if you want it to look softer and more natural, then I think this is a fantastic way to do it. Even if you want to use a liquid liner, go over it with your darker eyeshadow. I've got Midnight Blue on today as my eyeliner. And I'm also wearing actually pewter grey, and I'm wearing the dark Midnight Blue just a little bit to create a bit of a socket line too. So, but they're all matte shadows. So if you are starting to again look a little bit dull in the face, that's often postmenopausal. If it's starting to look dull, I would definitely recommend the Instant Bright Highlight. If you haven't tried this product, it's phenomenal because it creates that little bit of a sheen. I use it just here. You can see there's a little bit of a sheen that gives your face life without making it look shiny and obvious. And it's one of the best, I call it my magic pen, the best highlighters that I have come across for a more mature postmenopausal face. I wouldn't be without this. I use it every single day. And I use a stripe down my nose. I use it here, here. I put a little bit here as well. So that's a fantastic thing to use. So lips, just to go a little bit about lips as well. You will find, and I have certainly found, that I've got kind of lines around my lips now, which means that my lipstick does bleed a little bit more than it ever used to. So Never Feather Lip Prime is another essential item in my makeup bag, because if you just put it on the outer edge of your lip, it will stop the lipstick from going and bleeding upwards. Don't put it on, as a lot of ladies do, all over the lips. It's not a lip balm. It's literally to stop the lines that are there because of the lack of collagen and elastin that is sort of decreasing in this stage of our lives. So this is fantastic. I also find if you are still going through the hot flushes stage, the long-lasting lipsticks are brilliant. Because again, if there's sort of perspiration, you're much better to use the long-lasting lipsticks on your lips. They're brilliant. They won't move at all. Setting sprays. Some people say, do I need a setting spray? If you're using primers and our powder, you probably won't need one. But I think sometimes for a special occasion, or if you really are going through the hot flushes, then maybe a setting spray. I use something called, or on my clients, model in a bottle. Urban Decay do a really good one called All Nighter Deluxe Spray, which is a good one for hot flushes. And the other thing is, you might want to have with you some facial cooling spray, just some water. Even, there's something called Avene, which does a really nice sort of spray, which will just cool you down, or you can carry it in a little sort of bottle spray with you to go out. So just being able to spray yourself with water will help to calm everything down a little bit. Postmenopause, as Tricia said, this for me was actually, it's the best phase when you have gone through it. Hormone levels still can remain low. The symptoms of the menopause usually lessen, sometimes completely disappear. But sometimes you might still get the hot flushes, you might get depression, you might still have insomnia. Skin does tend to get and stay drier. But the thing about it is, you've got freedom from pregnancy, freedom from periods, freedom from PMT, and a whole new lease of life. And so for me, this stage is really important to keep the skin well hydrated. Your skin is there for the rest of your life. So look after it, use your hydration hold serum, use that. And also definitely then is when you get the skin's turnover, it goes down and it takes longer, it's slower. So there's basically a decrease in your natural oils and the skin turning itself over. So that's when you get the dullness and the lackluster sort of effect of your skin. So foundation and blusher, I think, are really essential at this stage in your life. Creating color, lipstick, a nice lipstick, using your blusher, using your bronzer, just evening out your complexion by using the continuous cover foundation or the beauty balm, or mixing the two together, and the concealer. And I think you want to bring back what Tricia talks about, the luminance of contrast. Then it's where you have put that color back into your face and your eyes and your lips. And I think for me, as well as doing my meditation, doing my yoga, the act of putting makeup on for me is actually a huge pleasurable act that I do every single day, whether I'm going to see anybody or not. I turn the radio on and I decide what lipstick color I'm going to use, what eyeshadows I'm going to use. And I thoroughly enjoy that whole thing of putting makeup on, for me, not for anybody else, just for my own pleasure. I see it as a little bit of art. Now, we've seen what a fantastic artist Tricia is, and now we know why her art on canvas as well. I see, for me, makeup as my own art. My face is my canvas. It's a very plain, boring, dull canvas until I start playing with the makeup. But for me, that has always uplifted me. And when I was actually going through the panic attacks and the slight depression and being not being able to sleep, makeup carried me through that as well. It really did, being able to put my face on to face the day, and to just make me look less tired and less depressed. It made a massive difference. And I that's why for me, it's a joy to be able to use makeup in that way. It was from the very start. So as Tricia said, you might think, oh, I can't be bothered today, I'm just down. Actually, sometimes being bothered doing, you might not want to put as much on, but just that act of self-care and time with yourself makes a massive difference. If you're going through sort of a rough patch through the menopause and beyond too. So that for me is sort of my story. And I would say, just one other thing I want to talk about is nails. I found my nails are, particularly through lockdown, I don't know, everything's gone a little bit, they're much drier, and they're starting to get better because I'm putting two things I'm doing. I am rubbing jojoba oil and also avocado oil into them as much as I can. And the rest of the time I'm using the new hand cream, which I love. So I'm using the hydrating hand cream. I love the smell of it. I've got a couple of them sort of around, and I'm finding that they're starting to come back. They're much shorter than they were, but nails can also be massively affected through the menopause. Last thing, I keep thinking of new things, late or adult onset acne can sometimes happen. So you might have been somebody who never had a spot throughout your teenage years and your adolescent years, and suddenly you get into your 40s or even sometimes 50s and get this sort of crop of spots that come up. It's hormonal. Hormones do an awful lot to us. So again, it's something to not panic about. It will sort itself out, but you might need help with that if it's really, really out of control. Don't think that you've got to strip your skin of oil if you're starting to get spots. Actually, having a little bit of natural plant-based oil on your skin can really help. Concealers, wonderful things. I mean, if I do get the odd spot now, I know that the creamy concealer, cover-to-cover concealer, will just get rid of it. And it's the not picking. But that happens to a lot of ladies, and they're in quite a lot of shock that their skin that was amazing has suddenly become very, very, just would break out into late adult onset acne, very, very common. So I think I've kind of covered what I use. I mean, the whole range is just made for women that are going through the perimenopause, that are going through the menopause itself, and then in the stage that I'm in, the postmenopause, the next stage of your life, the rest of your life. And that's where it's just such a fantastic range that Tricia has brought out. So
thank you, Sally.
That's okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. This one or two things that I want to pick up on there. I think I got some pushback when I actually launched Look Fabulous Forever. I got it on Twitter, actually, from one woman in particular, who was called, she was called the Invisible Woman as an ironic title for what she wrote about in The Guardian. And she wrote something on Twitter about attacking me and basically saying, oh my goodness me, you're ghettoizing older women, you'll make it worse by introducing a range of makeup specifically targeted at and for older women. And it's this whole thing, I see it in the fashion industry as well, about saying that we have ageless style. Ageless style is a way of saying that we can wear anything, and we don't have to be, and that goes for makeup. We can wear any makeup, we can wear any clothes, we don't have to take account of the aging process. Now, I agree with the principle of that 100%. I don't think we should be forced to change. If we want to wear something, we should wear it regardless. It's not an age-related thing. And the same could be true of makeup. The trouble is with that philosophy is that you don't take account of the changes that are happening to your body or to your face and your skin as you age. You deny it. It's part of the process of denying that aging has an impact on us. And that's my point, really. I don't want to ghettoize older women. I don't want to push them into this ghetto and say, you're old now, you know, you're past it, and you've got to, you've got to have special clothes and special makeup in that way, in a negative way. I see it as a totally positive process. It's about embracing those changes that are happening, acknowledging them, and taking account of them so that you can look your best. My body is not the same as it was when it was, 17. It's definitely not. It's bits of it have moved, mostly downwards. I love that bit. I don't know whether you ever remember Wendy Craig in Butterflies, where she's thinking of having an affair with Leonard, who she fancies like crazy. She's got a really boring husband, and Leonard's trying to persuade her that they should really have an affair. And she says, the thing is, Leonard, I look fine with my clothes on. When I take them off, there's been an avalanche. So I think it's hilarious. And I feel like I'm very definitely in that post-avalanche phase now, but it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Wear a good bra and hoik your breasts up. There's all sorts of things that you can do to compensate for that. So I think that we need to acknowledge that aging happens, that it impacts on us. It impacts on us in lots of ways, but then embrace it to the extent of saying, well, what works best for me now? So I'm unapologetic about the fact that Look Fabulous Forever is for older women. It's for women that are probably, engaged with the menopause in some way, shape, or form. And every single product, as Sally has said, we have thought it through. I have thought it through. The manufacturers that we work with have thought it through. What does a skin need? What does a face need? What do eyes, lips, and cheeks need at this stage of life to look their absolute and very best? So that's really what we're saying here. And I'm just picking up on a couple of things that Sally said there. One is the hand cream. I have had problems with my hands for the last 4 or 5 years. I've had these patches, which are, I showed them to a dermatologist when she was sorting out I've got a BCC on my nose. And I said, what are these patches on my skin? And she said, oh, that's eczema. I'll give you some cream for that. So I dutifully used this cream every night for about 6 weeks with absolutely no effect whatsoever. Since I've been using the Look Fabulous Forever hand cream, I can't believe it. The patches, I had 4 quite bad ones, and they would crack. The skin would crack and bleed. My hands are better. So it could be to do with the hand cream. I haven't changed anything else. I've been using everything that I normally use, Fairy Liquid and all that stuff. So the hand cream does seem to have the most amazingly restorative effect on our hands. And, I know it's full of goodies. So you say, well, she would say that, wouldn't she? But, the proof of the pudding, I've got better hands at the moment than I've had for a long time, which is actually really, really nice. The other thing I want to pick up on is I did today for you, I did a makeup for you because we've just launched, and I'm very keen on this this new eyeshadow palette, which we're calling Bright Blues. Now, one of the mantras of the beauty industry, especially the young beauty editors, is less is more when you're older. You don't want to look like some old harridan with your makeup slapped on you. And you've got to be very careful when you get older that you don't wear too much. So that makes me very cross, and I don't believe that's true at all. You just need the right makeup applied in the right way and you look amazing. So this might be a bit counterintuitive to some of you watching this, that we produced this lovely Bright Blues, because we've got the lovely soft blues, and they are very, very popular. But I saw this one. I'm always looking at what our competitors are producing and what's going on in terms of fashion, the beauty industry. And I saw this one on a beauty counter, and I just picked it up and went, oh, I love that color. We're calling it Cobalt Blue. So we had it made for us, and I'm wearing it today, and I absolutely love it. And the way that I've applied this, so if I come in close, maybe you can see. So that the paler one we've called Powder Blue. It's a really soft, almost like a baby blue. And I've put that, as you can see, all over my eyelids, on top of my eye primer. Then I've used the lovely bright Cobalt Blue, and I've used that as my accent color here into my and above my socket line to give extra and nice shape to my eyes. And then Sally has used Midnight Blue today with our new navy blue mascara. I've actually used the Cobalt Blue as my lash line. So I haven't used the Midnight Blue, I've used the Cobalt Blue, and I've pushed that into my lash line. So it's a little bit softer than using the Midnight Blue, but I think it looks lovely. And I'm very, very happy with it. Obviously, today I'm wearing this blue jeans jacket that I've got from, where did I get this from? Bella Donotti. It's one of theirs, which is a lovely blue. But you know, even if I wasn't wearing blue, I could wear this eyeshadow. So I love it. And if you're hesitating about it and you're thinking, oh God, I haven't worn blue like that since the 1970s or the 1980s, and it's a bit like one of those Marmite type colours, you know, love it or hate it. I'd say that if you apply it the right way, lots of blending and so on and so forth, it can look gorgeous. And I think it's brought the colour of my eyes out really. I've got sort of grey eyes. I think it's brought the colour of my eyes out really nicely. So can thoroughly recommend it, as you would expect me to say, but I am enjoying wearing it, and I think it, as I said, applied nicely, it can look really nice. I'm going to pass to Emily now. We've got a very special offer just for the people on this call, and then I'll come to Emily and see if we've had any comments that we need to pick up on. So tell us about the offer, Emily.
So we have an offer running exclusively for people that are on this call or that watch the catch up on YouTube. So we're offering 20% off to everybody on the call. This is going to run until the end of June. It only applies to the makeup category, but we do currently have a skincare offer on. So you can sort of choose between whether you want to use the skincare offer this week or the 20% off code for makeup. So the code is Magic06. I will put it in the description box on the video on YouTube. So it runs until the end of June, applies to the makeup category. Just use it like you would any other code, and it is exclusively for people that have been on this call or watch the catch up.
Yeah, and it applies to every makeup product, and there's no minimum spend or anything, so you can use it for that. So we hope you enjoy that. We thought we would give you a little present on this Monday morning to keep you happy. And Emily, have we got any comments or questions that you'd like to read out?
We have. So June asked about HRT. She said she didn't know what it was. So I sort of said it's hormone replacement therapy, but I thought maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on what it is.
Yeah, so hormone replacement therapy. June, are you in America? Is it called something else in America? HRT is one of those things that has a very, very bad press and a very bad rap. Certainly at the time that I started taking it, it was most women were avoiding it. So I started taking it in my late 40s. So we're talking about, I can't do maths, 24 years ago, 26 years ago. And it was introduced as the solution to lots of problems to do with the menopause, as a replacement for the estrogen that we lose. So I think you will all know on this call that what happens as you go into the menopause is that the estrogen levels that you have to keep you fertile and to keep your eggs nice and ripe so that you can become pregnant starts to lessen in the body. It decreases, and the effect of the decrease in estrogen in the body is that we get all the effects of the menopause, and also, of course, we lose fertility as a result. Now, if you have a womb, as I do, and you start giving estrogen to women, you increase the risk of breast cancer, because the presence of estrogen in the body, if you don't also give progesterone, which is the balancing out for the estrogen, is quite dangerous. And there were lots and lots of studies done, and there were some that had a lot of women in, sort of like 2 or 3 million women in them, and it seemed to show that there was a very significantly increased risk to women on HRT, hormone replacement therapy, of breast cancer. So it put the fear of God into a lot of women, and a lot of GPs also were very, very reluctant to prescribe it, even if the symptoms of menopause were quite bad. So a lot of those studies that were initially produced were ultimately discredited. And there is a much more balanced approach now, and there are different types and forms of HRT which are more bioidentical. In other words, they're much closer to how the body produces estrogen. They're like, I think it used to be, was it from horses' urine or something that estrogen used to be extracted? Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? So now the development of the forms of HRT is very different. It's much more refined, it's much more sophisticated, and of course it is therefore much safer. Now, I was what I had was I was given a progesterone coil. So I was given a Mirena coil, which was inserted into my uterus to protect me from, to give me the progesterone that I needed to balance out the estrogen that I was then given ultimately in hormone patches. So when I decided myself to come off HRT, I did so without much consultation with my doctor. I got to my mid-60s and I thought, I think it's probably time for me now not to be on estrogen, although I think I could have continued with it. But I knew that the progesterone coil inside me had lost all of its effectiveness. And I was a bit worried about that because I had it in for a long time. I didn't want to have another coil fitted, and I didn't want to have to take progesterone in any other form. So I decided that my little hormone patch, I would start to cut it down, and I would literally shave a tiny bit off every time I applied one, apply them twice a week. And gradually I got down to, there was a little tiny patch that I was putting on, and then I stopped. And I had no after effects or side effects or negative effect of that whatsoever. So it really worked for me. So that's what HRT is. And as I said, nowadays it's I think there's a much more balanced and a less hysterical conversation about HRT, and I think that it can be the most phenomenal support to women who are having the worst effects of it. And I think it saved my life. And I know that sounds terribly dramatic, but when I went on to HRT and I got my life back, I was working extremely hard in my late 40s. I used to have to go abroad a lot, and I was running training courses for people. And if I had a migraine, which I was getting a lot of, I would be sick every hour or hour and a half. And I would literally be standing in front of a group of people. I have to run out of the room and go to the toilet and be sick. Now, can you imagine having a life like that? It was horrendous. So it stopped with the HRT. And I feel that Professor Godson, who I heard on the radio recently, he saved my life. And I will ever be grateful that I lived in an era when HRT was available to me. Any other comments there, Millie, that you want to pick up on?
Yeah, this is more of just a comment than a question. But Liz says she had an easy ride through menopause, but it started very early following her hysterectomy. She began to suffer from hives horribly all over her body and hot flushes, which exacerbated the hives massively. They eased after her 50th birthday, and she just had the odd hot flush. And now at 67 years old, she has none. She had a short ride with HRT, but the GP took her off them when she had a breast cancer scare. She says she feels that she is now free of the menopause, but her skin has become quite thin and weak in places.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, the hives and the hot flushes and everything, that's horrendous. And of course, if you do have a hysterectomy, it propels you into an early menopause, if you have an early hysterectomy. So you need the support, for that medically. The thinning of the skin is kind of inevitable, I think, Sally. Would you agree? There isn't very much you can do about that. I've shown you this before, but skin is made up of these three layers. And there's the external layer, the epidermis, then there's the dermis, which is the middle layer. The middle layer, the dermis, is the bit that when you're younger, it's quite thick, that dermis, and in it is the scaffolding that supports the exterior part of your skin. So if you think of it as being sort of like this width when you're younger, and in that is all the collagen, the elastin, and the stuff that makes your skin strong, healthy, young looking, smooth. And what happens with the menopause is that dermis and the stuff that's in the dermis, the elastin, the collagen, and so on, because of the loss of estrogen, starts to diminish. And as it starts to diminish, that middle section of the dermis collapses. So the scaffolding starts to weaken and collapse. And obviously that's more dramatic in some skins than others. I think diet can help. I really think diet with skin makes a huge difference. And I think if Sally's talked a lot about, you know, the sort of things that she tends to make sure that her diet is rich in. And I do think that the skin is hugely affected by two things, actually, diet and sleep. And I think that, yes, topical creams, the sort of thing that we sell, the serum that we have is brilliant. The creams that we have, night and day creams, you know, really are full of good vitamins and the things that we need. But I do think you can support your skin and help it to become less thin. You know, slow down that process is a lot to do with diet and making sure that you hydrate your skin, drink lots of water. Don't shy away from eating fat, so good fats. Because if you diet a lot, you know, people who diet a lot, especially if they cut out fat from their diet, their faces often get that very quite gaunt look, because they've not got enough nutrition, good nutrition in their body to support their skins. And I'm quite careful to eat a fair amount of fat in my diet, in fact, which I get from oil mostly, and also from things like full fat yogurt. And so I don't like the low fat sort, because I don't think it's A, I don't think it tastes very nice, but B, it's full of sugar, and C, I think the full fat stuff definitely helps me look better. I hope that helped. Anything else, Emily?
Caroline says she thinks that she must have been very, very lucky because she only had a few night sweats and that's it.
Very lucky.
And then coming back to the blue eyeshadows, actually, Charlotte asks, can you wear blue eyeshadows on warm toned skin?
Well, I do, and I'm warm toned. I very often wear the blues. You know, I think we've talked before about not being totally regimented in the warm and cool with regard to eyeshadows, and playing around a little bit. It depends on your eye color, and for me, it does depend on what I'm wearing. I like to sort of tone a little bit of what I'm wearing in with my eye shades, but I love the blues, and I certainly wear midnight blue, I wear the pewter, and I've just got the new blue kit, so I shall be doing exactly what Tricia's done tomorrow, seeing if that works as an eyeliner on me. Brilliant.
Yeah. If you look at Sally and I at the moment, I mean, Sally's warm toned, just very definitely. I'm cool toned. She's got a top on that I would wear, and I'm thinking that she might be able to wear this top. So we remember that there are colors that cross over for us, but I think the critical thing, and I can't stress this enough, is to get your lipstick right. So I can't wear Sally's lipstick. She's got a corally lipstick on today, and I've got this is very berry, I think. So she'd look awful in that. So if you get your lipstick right, the rest of it, including your blusher, I know we're fairly rigid about this online, and we're rigid about it because it's much easier for us to explain it to our customers who are buying online, but you can experiment. And I've got peach cream blusher on today, I've got this blue eyeshadow. Translate that over to Sally. As long as she's got a warm toned lipstick on, I think she'd look lovely wearing something very similar to me. So it's not so rigid. And actually, I think that's helpful to you. I hope that's helpful to you, because we're actually basically saying to you, don't get too hung up on that, but do get hung up on your lipstick color, because get that wrong, and I think that throws your whole face off. I really do.
I just wanted to add as well that obviously we have the 30-day guarantee. So if you are warm toned and you weren't sure whether blues are going to suit you, you can buy it. You can return it for an exchange. You can return it for a refund or an exchange. So always worth giving it a go. And then we'll just do one last one from Suzanne. She says, views on collagen supplements, please.
Well, do you know what? I'm very conflicted about this. I've seen no evidence to support the idea that ingesting collagen, which is basically what collagen tablets and supplements are, has any effect on the actual collagen in your skin. So you might just be producing quite expensive urine. And I'm not very keen on it, producing expensive urine. So I'm going to say the jury's out. Read about it, research it, look at what medical practitioners who know about this stuff and are researching it are saying. I mean, I've certainly read an article that says that it's a nonsense to say that you can ingest collagen and it then goes to the places that you need collagen, which is your joints and so on. But I could be wrong, and I'm perfectly open to the idea that there may be research out there, or there may be different forms of collagen, or, you know, I could be wrong, and I'm going to leave. I think the jury's out. If it doesn't do you any harm, then you might want to have a go and see if you feel it helps. But I suspect that you're possibly wasting your money. I'm not going to advise you either way, because I don't think it's my place to do so. I'm not a medical doctor and I don't have any expert knowledge on that. So I wouldn't bother. Personally, I wouldn't bother. But, you know, you might want to. Is that it now, Emily?
That is all we've got time for today, yeah.
All right, we'll draw it to a close. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for your comments and so on. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I hope that in being part of this discussion, we're opening up the possibility of reducing the taboo around menopause, the fact that it's a perfectly common and natural and completely, everybody goes through it if you live long enough. I often think that menopause is one of those things that has happened because we're all living longer. Women used to die before the menopause or not long after the menopause. So there was never any very much question or interest in it. Now we're living longer and we have to live with the state of being menopausal for a lot longer. But hopefully we're redressing the balance of the antagonism towards older women as being somehow redundant, useless, you know, past their sell-by date and all the other things that were associated with the fact that we'd lost our fertility, which I think is, well, it's a gross calumny against us older women, and I hate it. I'm just going to flag something tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a very big secret, but we have got a launch of something that I am so excited about. So it's a new category for us as a business, and well, you'll find out about it tomorrow, and I'm not going to say anything more. My lips are sealed. I've been told in no uncertain terms that I can't say what it is, but do watch this space, because it's something that, for Look Fabulous Forever anyway, is enormously exciting, and I hope it's going to be really exciting for our customers. And as I said, we're going to do the big reveal tomorrow. So thank you all for coming. Lovely to see all of you, and I hope you've been, as I said, you found that useful and illuminating. Thank you again to Sally, as always, for being brilliant, and also to Emily for guiding us through. So bye everybody. Hope you have a lovely week.
If you love this video and would like to see more content like this, then subscribe to my channel.